second virtual meeting of the Board of Directors of the Toronto Senior Housing Corporation. As the City of Toronto Corporation, the Board of Directors acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. The board also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. I'm very pleased today to introduce the Board of Directors and our future tenant community to Michael Sherrar, the Toronto Senior Housing Corporation Transitional Lead and Chief Corporate Officer. Michael was appointed by the board at our inaugural meeting to launch the Toronto Senior Housing Corporation, pending recruitment of our permanent Chief Executive Officer in 2022. Michael has over 25 years of executive leadership, research, clinical, and operational management experience, serving most recently as the President and Chief Executive Officer of Cancer Care Ontario. He assumed his responsibilities as the first employee of the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation on July 19th. Over the past 3 weeks, Michael has hit the ground running, and we'll hear more about his activities in his report shortly in the agenda. And I think before I go on, since I'm the only one who's had the pleasure to formally meet Michael to this point, I'd welcome people to just identify themselves. So Councillor Ainsley, are you with us yet? No, okay. Lawrence D'Souza?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Councillor Paula Fletcher?
Hello, Michael. Welcome.
Hello. Hello.
Linda Jackson?
Hi, Linda.
Warren Law?
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Warren.
Carrie McNeil?
I think you're on mute, Carrie.
No, I'm not. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jim Meeks and Brenda Parrott and Tom Azu, who is standing in today for Chris Murray, the ex officio member of the board from the City of Toronto.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you again, Michael.
Hi, Tom. And I think Paul has just joined, Maureen.
Paul? Just want to introduce you to Michael Sherrar, if you can see this. Okay. And now I've lost Michael. So in any event, welcome. And I want to thank the board for agreeing to schedule this additional meeting mid-summer to enable us to meet Michael altogether, and also to make a number of decisions that will continue to advance the startup of the corporation. As with all City of Toronto corporations, our board meetings are open to the public, with the exception of a closed session to address specific matters of a confidential nature that are clearly defined in our governing legislation. While we still don't have our technology in place for a live broadcast of our meetings, it is being recorded and will be available on the Toronto Senior Housing Corporation page of the City of Toronto website. As a reminder to directors regarding our procedure during the meeting, to assist our board secretary, Monique, I would ask that you state your name when you move and second any resolutions. For example, I, Brenda, move the motion, and Paula second the motion. To ask a question, could you please use, if you have comfort with the technology of raising your hand, which is located next to your name on the participants list, either beneath, above, or on the side of your computer, depending on what technology you have. And I just ask you also unraise your hand after you have completed your question. So with those introductions, I would, sorry, Paul.
I can't find my hand to raise. I just wondered if you could introduce everybody who's not a board member or Michael, who's on our call, just publicly. There's Emma, Monique, Emily, and Michael Smith. If they could introduce themselves too,
I
Maureen.
apologize. I should have done that. I know Michael has spent a lot of time with them, but yes. So Emma, and
Hi, everyone. I am Emma Helfen-Green. I'm a management consultant with Senior Services and Long-Term Care, supporting the startup of the Seniors Housing Corporation, and I'm also recording the meeting today.
Monique.
Hi, I'm Monique. I'm the board secretary, and I'm here to take your minutes and help Maureen and Mike throughout this process.
Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Gauze. I'm a project manager with the Tenants First team, and I'm also providing some support today.
And I believe Michael Miller is also with us.
Michael Smith, it seems.
Michael Smith.
Sorry, I knew that wasn't right. I'm sorry, Michael
Smith. I'm a lawyer with the City of Toronto Legal Services, and I am advising Michael and the board for a transitional period of time.
Thanks very much. So with that, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda which was previously circulated?
Linda, I move that it be adopted.
Thank you, Linda. Could I have a seconder?
Seconded by Warren.
Thank you, Warren. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Maureen, sorry, it's Paula. If I have some other things that I'd like to add in there, maybe that could be when Michael Shearer gives us his report. Is that okay? Just have some questions for things.
Okay. Sorry. So it just matters that you want to raise
Make
with
sure
Michael.
that they're on, make sure they're on our board agenda, some questions. So I'll wait and maybe it be done under Michael, his report.
Okay,
If
that's
not,
great.
I'll find a way to get it in there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paula. So I think we had all in favor, any opposed, carried. All right, thank you. The item 3 on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the public meeting held on June 30th, our inaugural meeting. It's in your package as attachment 1. And I would ask for a motion to adopt the minutes.
Warren adopts.
Carrie
Warren?
seconds.
Karen, thank you. Are there any errors or omissions?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Carried, thank you. At this point, we have the conflict of interest declaration for the public session. As you know, I am required to ask for any conflict of interest with regard to any matters on our public agenda. And may I ask at this time if there is anything that anyone wishes to declare? Okay, thank you. Item 5, we're now going to move briefly into closed session to deal with a matter of a confidential nature. I've asked staff to leave and they'll be notified as we return to the meeting. Of all those who are not directly involved in the discussion. Thanks.
I think we need a motion to go into closed session.
Yes, I'm sorry. Sorry, a motion we have a motion to close part of the meeting to the public to give consideration to a report containing personal matters about an identifiable individual. Paula, would you move that?
Yes, I sure will. Yep.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder?
Warren.
Warren, thank you. All in favor?
You're good, Warren. You're good.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Public session. Could I have a mover and seconder for the resolution that the board approves the election of Director D'Souza to the position of Vice Chair of the Board of Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation for the current term of his appointment to the board, which is to May 6th of 2023. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So move. Brenda
Brenda,
Paris.
thank you. Second,
Warren seconds.
Warren. Thank you, Warren. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And congratulations, Lawrence, on behalf of the board. Thanks very much. So we now move to item 11, which is the report of Michael as transitional lead. As I mentioned, Michael's been very busy since he arrived, and I know we all look forward to hearing what he's learning and what he's doing. So over to you, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maureen. And first, let me say thank you very much to the board for this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to and excited about the opportunity to work with you and support you in the launch of Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. I think it's going to be both, I hope, a very worthwhile, of course, and effective and an efficient launch of the organization towards Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation taking on the operational responsibility for seniors tenants in Toronto. As Maureen has said, it's been quite a busy first 3.5 weeks. And I'm pleased with the progress that we're making, and I'm happy to report on that to you today. That progress has been in very large measure due to just terrific support from the city staff team. And I really want to thank them. I think you all know them. They're Jen St. Louis, Kevin Lee, Emma Helfen Green, Michael Smith, and Rima Patel, and Emily Gauss. They have just been terrific in supporting me, being extremely responsive to the things that we felt together that we needed to do to help get things going very quickly. And I can't say enough about how effective that team has been. I also want to thank the Toronto Community Housing leadership, Sheila Penny and the team there. I've had several discussions with Toronto Community Housing, preliminary discussions about many of the issues that we're going to be dealing with together and working on together towards a transition for seniors housing. Those include the basic operations of the corporation with respect to tenants and the buildings. Some of the issues that are very specific, of course, to seniors tenants, including the integrated service model, tenant engagement, and other issues that are going to be very important for the new corporation. And they have been really very helpful as an orientation for me to learn about the issues that we will be taking on as a corporation. And that the issues of seniors tenants. And I'm very happy also to report that tomorrow I'll have a first meeting with the new incoming CEO, who's just started, I think, a week ago at Toronto Community Housing, Jag Sharma. So I'm very much looking forward to meeting him and making sure that we get off to a very good start with respect to our work together over the coming months to work towards transition. I will say that I think Toronto Community Housing and all the interactions I have had have been terrific as well with respect to their commitment that this transition be effective and efficient for the tenants, firstly, that it's smooth, and that it's efficient and effective for the corporations as well. So I think we have a common interest to make sure that the interests of our tenants are served well through this transition and making sure that the new corporation, our new corporation, can start off on a very good footing. I do want to thank you also for taking this extra step of having another board meeting in the middle of the summer. In working, and I've done a considerable amount of work with Maureen over the past 3 weeks, and I want to thank Maureen for being so available to helping guiding this work. We felt that it would be very helpful for us as a new corporation to have this extra board meeting, because as you can see on the agenda, there are a number of kind of foundational building blocks for a new corporation that we need to put in place to allow us to operate in this transition period, in being able to do all of the planning that's going to be necessary over the coming months to ensure an effective transition. And so we'll go through those agenda items that are going to be important for us. One of them you'll see is a budget, and grateful to the city for an allocation of funds towards that budget. And one of the things that will allow us to do is to bring on some key resources that we will need as a small transition team, if you like, that will enable us to engage fully with Toronto Community Housing and with the city on the major issues that we need to plan for transition over the coming months. At the end of the material, you'll see a revised work plan. I think you had a work plan at your first meeting for the board. I've revised that in terms of the things that will be coming up, finished today, and those things that will be coming up for our board meeting on September 28th, and there'll be a number of milestone steps. One of the things that you'll see there is what I will bring forward as a detailed plan towards transition to an operating corporation. Much of that work has been done and supported by the city, and we'll work to kind of finalize what that plan will look like, what the activities will be into 2022 that will allow us at a point in time that we will need to agree on with Toronto Community Housing for that transition, where we would become the landlord to seniors tenants in those buildings. Just one issue that I want to just go over that's on that work plan as well is you'll see that at the September 28th board meeting, we will bring back a recommendation with respect to insurance for the new corporation. And I just want to let you know that in the interim, we and the corporation are covered by insurance. This is the city plan, which is an error and emissions type of insurance. That's backdated to, I think, the prior board meeting that you participated in. And so until we change that, the corporation is covered under the city's insurance plan. That will likely be one of the options that we'll look at continuing, but we'll get into that discussion at the September 28th meeting. So I think that was most of the things that I wanted to report on, Maureen, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions about my activities or the work that's been done or the work that's upcoming.
Thank you very, very much, Michael. And are there any questions for Michael?
Yes, I do. Hi. Thank you, Michael. It sounds like you've been really busy. Some of these might also be answered by some of the staff leads from the city. Michael may not be that familiar. One of the things that was asked for a number of times, I don't know if you have it, Michael, but it basically is the current operating cost of the seniors portfolio as it stands. So for the 83 buildings, what is that current budget, and what's the capital cost, state of good repair, etc., that has been associated for each of those 83 buildings. I don't think that we've ever seen that at the TCH board, but it's been asked for. So I'm going to assume somewhere along the line, somebody has created that, because we're now going to say, here's our budget allocation that we'd like for 2022. So when you're asking for that. So can I have a confirmation from someone, whether it's Tom or you, Michael, or anybody else from Tenants First, that we have that and that's part of our conversation about our budget request when we make it? Do you have that?
Michael?
Maybe I can just start, Paula. I have, with Toronto Community Housing, gone over some of the broader strokes of the budget, but I have not seen a detailed budget that looks at that split between the seniors buildings and the others. You know, there'll be several issues there with respect to services and activities that are carried out in Toronto Community Housing that cross seniors and other buildings. So, but you know, that's going to be a very important thing for us to work with Toronto Community Housing, as you say, in terms of the budget once we get to transition that needs to be agreed upon with Toronto Community Housing and presumably the city. But I haven't seen a detailed budget yet.
So I don't know who's, where did Monique went? Monique is doing minutes.
I am.
I would like to formally ask for that, Madam Chair, that this board would like to be provided the current operating costs for 83 buildings and the current state of good repair and capital forecast for those 83 buildings. Because that's been asked for. I think Emily would know over and over and over again, including at the TCH board, and we don't have it. So I'm sorry to be so prickly, but it's pretty foundational. Here's your current operating costs, and that we should know what they are. And then we're building up the budget from there. And if you don't have it, I think that's an issue for me. And that would be a great thing to start off with the new CEO from TCHC, because he probably should know exactly what that is.
Well,
So-
I'm happy to do that on behalf of the board. I mean, it clearly it would be something that was on my agenda anyway. So I'm happy to start that work with them in terms of getting that information, Councillor Fletcher.
And
So we have basically looking for the baseline, Maureen?
Yes.
The current baseline?
No, I understand, Paula. I think what, can I suggest that recognizing the legitimacy of your concern, that we leave it with Michael to pursue that information and record in the minutes the request for that, but I don't think we require a motion beyond that, if you're agreeable.
I'm agreeable once that when we start discussions on the budget, that we actually can see, Tom's nodding, that we can see the baseline
Yes.
of the current, including the projections.
Understood.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you. So that's.
I would agree with Paula on these matter. I was going to ask those same questions. And should we not formalize it, though, in order to ensure that it gets tracked and monitored? My concern, Paula, as you've mentioned, it's been asked before and hasn't been offered. So that raises
I
my.
think it's not a bad idea for us to actually ask for that baseline.
Yeah.
Michael isn't then asking, he's actually now required to get that from TCHC.
Yeah, I agree. I would formalize it. Formalize the request in a motion.
Any further comment on that question before I ask Paula to actually make the motion? Okay, well, Paula, would you like to move that? I think Monique, do you have wording?
Monique may have some wording there.
Do you?
Or not?
Yes, I think that you're looking for the current a motion to approve approve.
Provide,
No, it's request the transitional lead to provide a baseline, the current baseline operating budget and capital costs for the 83 buildings that make up the new seniors corporation. That would, for me, that would be clear that that's what you're looking for, Michael, when you ask for that.
okay. Brenda, would you like to second that motion? Okay. Brenda, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Am I on? Oh, sorry, there I am. Seems to be contrary, I should say mute. Anyways, I second that motion.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried, thank you. Okay,
have a few more.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, I just have a few more things that I think are extremely important that we don't wait till September and that Michael can start understanding some of these things. One of them is the discussion currently underway on the OACH. And I don't know how much of a discussion you've had, Michael, but it's very active over at Toronto Community Housing. And I think all the seniors are very, very interested in what's going to happen to that position. So I'm just flagging it from our board standpoint that we need to be interested in that on behalf of everybody in the 83 buildings. And Linda Jackson is extremely familiar with the OACH, having chaired the Tenant Services Committee for Toronto Community Housing for a number of years. So I don't know if anybody's flagged for you that that is an issue, but I'm just letting you know that it's a hot topic for seniors, and Carrie's can speak to that as well, and so can James. That's one. The second is just around the stack, and I don't know, because what I would like to understand is the current structure we're operating under, but there's a stack. Most of you probably have no idea what that is. It's the Senior Tenants Advisory Committee, and I believe it was put together either by TCHC or Tenants First, or both together. Somebody could tell me, but they are, they've been along this process the whole way with the city and TCHC, and maybe Emily, was it put together by TCH or by the city?
It is a TCHC, a committee of tenants that's been pulled together by TCHC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and
they're currently, though, they're not TCHC tenants, they're Seniors Corporation tenant. They're living in buildings that the Seniors Corporation will be taking over. So,
Paula, if I may,
somehow,
I just want to, if I may, I think all of the directors have a number of questions, I'm sure, and I know that you have a particular insight because of the role you play on the TCHC board. What I would suggest, and Michael and I have had a discussion already about the opportunity for Michael to meet one-on-one briefly with each of you to get an understanding of the matters that are on your mind and the things you'd particularly like to know about. I can't, given our time for this agenda, I'd rather have you provide that one-on-one to Michael, and then everyone will.
Sorry, Maureen, I'm going to disagree. I think there are member issues the board needs to know about. And I want Michael to come back as to the role of, the role of the stack and how it's coming over to us and how we're getting advised and how
this is not the time.
Advised.
No, Councillor Fletcher, my concern is that there are many matters that will be addressed in the transition, and that's why we have Michael in his role as transitional lead.
I understand.
Michael will come back to the board and brief the board on all of these matters once he understands, both from the city staff and Toronto Community Housing, the status of various matters. But at this point, I would I would ask all directors to recognize that everything will be coming forward over time, but we cannot have all of these matters raised in this meeting today and deal with the matters that we have on our agenda today. So
Okay,
with
I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you. I'm only letting you know there's certain issues that are on fire, and I've seen it too many times where it comes back. So Michael, I'm happy to brief you on this, but I do believe it's board business. These are very big issues that are on fire at the other corporation with seniors. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And they will become board business in the fullness of time. And thank you for your understanding. Are there any other questions for Michael based on his report today that anybody wants to raise? Okay, well, thank you, Michael. And we look forward to your coming back to us with the matters that we will be addressing arising both from what you've heard from the individual directors and also what you are continuing to work on your own initiative with TSHC and with the city. So thank you. I'd like to move to item number 12, which is the approval of the TSHC 2021 budget and the acceptance of funds. I would mention here there is a revision to the motion that you have in your package. So after we hear the presentation from Michael on the budget, we will have two motions, a motion to amend the original motion, as Michael will explain, and then a motion to approve the amended motion. But before we get into that, Michael, over to you on the proposed budget for 2021.
Great, thank you, Maureen. Yes, in order to allow us to operate and to hire key resources that we will need to engage the city and Toronto Community Housing on all of the substantive issues of the transition plan, some of which Councillor Fletcher has alluded to, and there are significant issues for us as will become visible to us shortly. I have prepared a budget in consultation with city staff and in line with the allocations that city had anticipated that we would need. You'll see that budget in the materials as an attachment. It goes from essentially now until the end of 2021. We will likely, as I've talked about in the report, of course, need an additional budget for part of 2022 prior to the transition for us to become a full operating corporation. And Councillor Fletcher has alluded to that issue as well, which is the major issue of the budget at Toronto Community Housing and Toronto Seniors Housing. But that won't, of course, occur until the transition, so we'll need another stub period, if you like, in early 2022 to cover that period. And I'll work with city staff on the preparation of that according to their normal budget cycle. As Maureen has indicated, and this is my omission, for which I apologize, was that I had intended that this motion not only include approval of the budget, but I think it's important that the motion include an authorization by the board to accept those funds from the city to support that work. And the amended motion includes that authorization approval by the board. So I think I'll leave it at that. Maureen, happy to answer any specific questions that board members may have.
Okay, so are there any questions for Michael on the transitional budget to get us to the end of 2021?
Just a quick question. It's Brenda here. I'm assuming you're talking about this attachment to item 12 as the budget?
Attachment
yes.
to item
Okay.
12, yes.
So 895,000?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. And so that's from now to December?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And will that be incorporated in the final budget, whatever gets approved? I mean, is this just an add-on to that budget?
This will form our budget for 2021, and then once I've gone through the consultation process with the city with respect to 2022, I'll present a new budget for 2022 for the board to approve. So that at all times there is a budget that we are working to as a corporation that has been approved by the board. So this will be our budget for 2021.
And this doesn't include any of the operational. We're not expecting to have the full transfer of the operational budget until 2022?
I'm assuming in this budget that the transition will not occur in 2021. That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Michael on the proposed budget? Okay, Monique, could you put the motion up, please? So the amended resolution, be it resolved, the directors receive the report and approve the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2021 budget and authorize the acceptance of funds by the Toronto Senior Housing Corporation from the City of Toronto. So can I have a motion to approve that? Sorry, can I have a mover for that motion?
Warren moves.
Linda seconds.
Warren and Linda, is there any further discussion?
No.
All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask for a motion to amend the original motion that was in your board package. So may I have a mover for that as well and a seconder?
Carrie, so moved.
Carrie, seconder.
Paula second.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Michael, item number 13, the approval of the interim signing authorities policy, and that is attachment 3 in your agenda package.
Thank you, Maureen. So this is the next step, if you like. Once we've formed a budget and accepted funds, we need financial controls for the organization. Now, those are relatively simple at this stage because I'm the only employee of the organization. And what we have done, and Michael Smith, who's on the line from the city, has been very helpful in both consulting with me and drafting these, but I'm presenting them to the corporation's board on behalf of staff, that this will be our financial controls within the organization during this interim period, and so termed an interim signing authorities that you see there. Michael can answer some questions you may have, and I can too, but generally we have fashioned this after the similar signing authorities at the city that you might see for someone at a senior level within the city. So there's a threshold below which I can commit the organization. There is a middle threshold from 50 to 100,000 that requires board member approval, and then there's a threshold above 100,000 that requires the whole board approval. I think this will be fine for us to act expeditiously, but with appropriate financial controls during this interim period, and be able to do the work that we need to do, but have appropriate financial controls over the organization. So I'm happy to answer any questions on this item, Maureen.
Michael, just before questions, just to make sure that the board is aware of the fact that any matters that are approved, whether by you or by you and an officer, will be matters that have been that you signed for will already have been approved by the board in the budget.
That's correct. The signing authorities and commitments explicitly state that expenditures must be in line with what is envisioned within the budget.
Thank you. Any further questions for Michael on the interim signing authority and financial commitment policy? No? Okay, if I'm not, may I have a motion to approve, to adopt the resolution that the
Moved
board.
by Paul.
Paul, thank you. Second?
Lawrence. Oh, second.
Lawrence, thank you very much. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. That takes us to item 14, which is the approval of banking facilities and banking arrangements. And for this item, I'm going to ask Michael Smith from City Legal to speak to this report. And it is, and there is no attachment for this item.
There's no attachment for this item because the draft ones had included Mr. D'Souza's signature place as vice chair, and he hadn't been appointed as yet. So they haven't been included. They are really just three simple agreements. One is a master agreement to open a bank account, which provides the specimen signing signatures of the authorized signing officers and the CRA account number. We do have a CRA account. The second one is an agreement where there are any special instructions to the bank regarding financial authority. And it will, the resolutions that you see really are a repeat of the signed authority. So it tells the bank that a check for less than 50,000 can be signed by Michael, and then anything over that has to be signed by 2 members of the board. And that's all it really accomplishes. And then the third one is, just an account request. So it's a fairly simple banking document. It gives the bank the spending authorities and the signatories the signatures that are required. And the reason we chose the Royal Bank is that's the official banker for the City of Toronto, and there was a discount on the fee. I don't know what the fee is, but that's why we chose it. It was probably the easiest avenue.
Are there any questions for Michael Smith on the banking recommendations? No? Okay, if not, then may I have a motion to approve? We have a 4-part resolution that I'm not going to read, but it will give us the Royal Bank of Canada and then the authority for under 50,000, over 50,000, and the authority of myself and Lawrence on behalf of the board and Michael to execute the necessary documents to give effect to the new banking arrangements. So may I have a motion to—
Madam Chair, I move. Warren.
Warren, thank you, Mark. Warren. Second.
Jim.
I'm sorry. Who was the seconder?
Jim.
Was that Lawrence and Warren? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. I'd like to turn then to item 15, which is the adoption of an interim deputations policy. This item is also supported by attachment number 4 in the supporting documents. I would mention just before Michael begins that the policy that is being proposed is, at my request, an excerpt from the Toronto Community Housing policy, which addresses deputations but is much wider than deputations. And I felt that given that this is our interim policy specifically on deputations, that we should only use that portion of the TSHC policy relating to deputations. So that's why, for those of you who are familiar with the TSHC policy, which is much broader, you may wonder where the other couple of pages went. So with that, Michael, would you speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Maureen. As you're probably aware, as a corporation of the City of Toronto and through our shareholder direction, we are required to allow and enable deputations directly to the board. And as I know, Councillor Fletcher is aware of and occurs at Toronto Community Housing and of course other corporations. I know our first meeting that you had in June and this meeting are not enabling that function. And in discussions with Maureen, we felt that it was important to enable this early on in the launch of the corporation. These deputations are to enable tenants, but other stakeholders as well to make deputations to the board. So although we don't yet have tenants, tenants will likely have an interest in how we're launching the corporation towards the transition where we do become their landlord, and other stakeholders will have an interest in how we're launching as a corporation. So in that sense, having a commitment to accountability and transparency, we felt it would be good for us to have a deputations policy. Now, for the long run, what's best in terms of our corporation with seniors tenants, I think that will take some time and consideration to develop and approve at the board a full deputations policy for when we're an operating organization. So this is, we felt, the best way to allow us to start. It will essentially mirror what is done at Toronto Community Housing in terms of the process for enabling deputations at board meetings. And if approved today, we put that in place ready for the next board meeting on September 28th. I think all we've done here is essentially taken the language of that deputations policy. As Maureen has said, we've kind of stripped away what there is. If you read the Toronto Community Housing Policy, there's a lot of work on programming with engagement of tenants to enable them to come forward and those kinds of things, education sessions. So we've pared this down to the process and the policy and the principles that will enable and encourage deputations to the board. So that's what you see there. And all I've essentially done is removed the name Toronto Community Housing and replaced it with Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. And this will serve as if you approve it, as our deputations policy until that time where we have considered what would be best for the future as an operating organization. And we can do that in due time and take our time to do that well. Maureen.
Thanks very much, Michael. Any questions for Michael on the interim deputations policy? Carrie?
Yeah, thank you. First, I just want to say that's wonderful news that you recognized how important it is to have this in place as quickly as possible, because we're being asked by tenants when they will have an opportunity to have their voices heard. So this is wonderful news. I just want to ask one question about it's point B in the recommendations. Management will take necessary steps to give effect to the deputations policy, including informing all stakeholders of these procedures. How will that happen? How will that notification happen?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Carrie. I mean, that's the language straight out of the Toronto Community Housing, but I think it's an important issue that we need to let people know, of course, that they can make deputations. So I think we'll find ways to do that. We can do that on the city part of the website where our information is held. At the moment, we don't have our own website, and I'll talk about that later on at a future board meeting, but we can put it there. I think we can also do it appropriately with the help of Toronto Community Housing. You know, they are currently the landlord for seniors, and I think finding ways to let tenants know that this is available to them is something that I will work out in consultation with Toronto Community Housing as ways to notify tenants and other stakeholders that this process is open to them. So not all worked out yet, Carrie, but we'll work on that well in advance of the September 28th meeting.
Yeah, the main reason I ask is that I don't think my building is different from many others, but more than 60% of our tenants do not have internet connectivity. And it is our biggest challenge in delivering any type of information, you know, or educational, any other type of information to our tenants. It is a real challenge. So happy to hear you say that too, Michael.
So I think this will be one of the good things about the new corporation, Carrie. We'll be able to tailor these programs specifically for seniors in the future.
Great, thank you.
I have a question or comment from Jim and Brenda and Linda. So Jim?
I don't have a question.
I'm sorry. Oh, I see your hand up in my little list. Brenda, did you?
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Brenda?
Just a quick point, and we'll probably come up in developing our own policy, but has this process of deputation policy served us well at TCH? I mean, I know we're doing this as an interim measure, but I just want to make sure that, you know, we're adopting things that blindly, in a sense, because I don't know how successful it's been. And I just want to highlight my concern that, you know, the issue for me is is it working? You know, is this really an appropriate way for people to have input, or other ways that might be more suitable? Witness the point you mentioned about, Carrie, about the internet access. And I think that's very, very common. It's not just your building. And have to keep that in mind.
Good point, Brenda. I think, you know, the language is not so specific in the policy that we can't do things in the interim that work better perhaps for seniors tenants than they do now with respect to deputations to our board. So we can look for ways to enable it, and we can work with Toronto Community Housing if we feel that it doesn't work as well as it could currently.
It's just it's a very formalistic method of talking about involvement, and often these formalisms don't work. And I know, Paula, you mentioned something about concern about the advisory committee and all the anxiety people may have about their role and their voice not being heard. So I just want to make sure we don't only rely on formalistic procedures that we've done in the past. That's all.
Thank you, Brenda. Linda?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Brenda. And having been on the TSHC board, you know, deputation. I think there's two items that we have to talk about. You know, I think we do have a unique opportunity as a seniors-focused arm of housing to actually ensure we have really good tenant engagement. And deputations is just one form. I think we have to have a deputation. I think people get very frustrated if they don't feel like they have access to the board. And you will find that there's a small group of people that are ready, willing, and able to depute on most items. And as a board, it is challenging sometimes to actually get through the agenda and figure out how to do that. I would love us as a board, though, to have opportunities to have engagement that goes beyond deputations and to find those voices. And I think you raise a really important point, Carrie. You know, the quality or the volume of deputations decreased when we went online, and we were definitely hearing from you know, some of the people that are less vulnerable and able to use technology. So I think we probably need to look at that too. So I think we need a deputation policy. I think we need other ways of engaging.
Thank you, Linda. And I believe that Paula also has a question or a comment here.
Yes, I think maybe this should be the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation interim deputations policy.
It is.
Because, well, it doesn't say that, does it? It's not the head. not the headline.
No.
So title it that way is what you're saying.
Yes, I think it should be titled like that. So when seniors are looking at that, they know they're going to have some input into how they'd like to be able to depute some of the things that Carrie has raised. And this will be in the minutes for the meeting where will be the first deputations will be held and heard. So we may get some feedback on that in September. And I do note that I'm just going to go back to that stack because that's currently the only advisory for tenants, for senior tenants, outside of the two directors who happen to be tenants. And that it's important to get off on the good foot with all of the people that have been thinking about that and charged with thinking about that with TSHC for that length of time. And then having tenant directors, they can play such an important role. So I'm going to suggest that the title be interim, please, and that Michael, you would meet with the tenant directors and around tenant engagement and the staff on them. Thank you.
The actual policy is labeled interim, and I apologize if it's not throughout the materials in the agenda. So we will make sure that that's reflected in the minutes as well. But on the actual attachment, you'll see it's. I think you'll see it's interim.
Before, yes.
Yeah.
But the item says deputy.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my mistake on the agenda. I apologize for that.
That's all right. We're just making sure people don't say, why are you doing that without us? Because as Carrie will nod, yes, they will. So this is their corporation. They're pretty excited. So we have to make sure.
Nothing about us without us.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, Paula. And so with that, would someone like to move the resolution that the board approve the adoption of the attached THC deputations policy for THSC? Could I suggest that it be amended to say in the interim until a THSC specific deputations policy is developed? And that way the title of the policy will be interim and the resolution will be clear that it is in the interim until a THC policy is developed. And then that management take necessary steps to advance this. Oh. Do I have a mover?
Can I just question, management means you, Michael, is that right?
Yes, yes, at the moment.
All
That's right.
powerful.
Paula, would you like to move that?
Although, yeah, okay.
And could I have a seconder?
All second.
Sorry? Paul, thank you. Yes, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Great, thank you. Michael, item 16, the approval of the legal counsel corporate secretary recruitment process. And this is also, no, there is no attachment for this.
Yeah, thank you, Maureen. As I stated earlier, our plan will be to bring on a small transition team, if you like, that will enable us to do all the planning work with Toronto Community Housing and the city towards transition. And in thinking about that, I had thought that, you know, for the permanent executive positions the corporation will need, that many of those probably should await the appointment of a permanent CEO, unless it's advantageous to us as a corporation to appoint someone earlier. The one position within that I'm recommending that we do proceed to hire a permanent recruit for the corporation is the legal counsel corporate secretary role. I think you'll see in the report the reasons that I'm recommending that, and they are largely that we have a tremendous amount of work to do that will require not only good legal advice, but I think legal advice that's in-house. We may still need some expertise that we go outside for, but that we will need a lot of the work that we will be doing for the transition will involve matters of contracts, the transition of responsibilities from one organization to the other. And the second, so there's a lot of operational work that I think would benefit from that recruitment, and having the person who's going to be there for the long term and invested in the corporation for that. The second reason is that I'm also recommending that this position, and this is relatively common, jointly report to the CEO, or the new CEO as they come in, and to the board. So the board has a direct line of sight into legal matters for the corporation, and has support for the board in terms of the corporate secretary role. So in that sense, the board's going to have, of course, a very key role in that recruitment as well. So for all of those reasons, I'm recommending that we do proceed with that recruitment, that is a position that would jointly report, as I laid out in the report, for the different kinds of functions to the board and to the CEO, and that a joint management, and as you say, Councillor Fletcher, that's me at the moment, a joint management board committee be struck to go through that recruitment process and recruit an excellent legal counsel, corporate secretary for the corporation. And just the last point that I've put in there is that I don't believe that we need the services of a search firm to do this. In terms of the network that I and others on the board, perhaps, and within the city have with respect to people who have these skills in Ontario and in Canada for excellence in an in-house corporate counsel and corporate secretary. So that's my recommendation. Happy to answer any specific questions, Maureen.
Yes, so Brenda, you have a question for Michael?
Yeah, I like the idea of hiring now for the reasons you state, for two reasons. One is I'd like to start relying less on outsourcing these roles and functions. I think that's a very dangerous, slippery slope we get into, and has been the experience of previous city corporations. And secondly, in terms of recruiting, do we need to limit our recruitment drive to city employees? Will city employees get first crack? Is there any sort of requirement there? And because there's presumably legal counsel available within city departments. And thirdly, whatever we do for recruiting, I like it to be broader than just, the informal old boys networks, that it be broadened to include diverse candidates, as it is the policy, certainly currently at TSHC, to do that. And I'd like to start applying that in our search for any of our staffing positions. There's lots of folks out there who could do this job, particularly within ours, and I'd like to get a freshness of thought and freshness of approach. And I don't want it just to be the same old, same old. So whatever the committee that's struck does, I want to ensure that, and I will be asking those questions, what has been the nature of the search and the recruitment process that you undertook?
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, I'll just, as far as I'm aware, there is no requirement for us as a corporation of the city to preferentially hire city employees or anything like that. I'm not aware of anything like that. So I'm anticipating, and then in response to your second concern, absolutely, that this should be a completely open and transparent recruitment that we would post and make sure that, as you state, that we are encouraging a full diversity of candidates to apply for the position. We want to encourage as many people as we possibly can to apply for this and to be able to select the best candidate for the corporation, including all of the issues that you've raised, Brenda. So
and if we do have to, sorry,
go
I
ahead.
cut you off. If we do
No,
have to
go ahead.
rely on a search agency, that when we recruit that search agency, we ask those questions of them, because we know there are some that just pad their list of people who are inappropriate candidates and those that actually do the work. So either way, whether it's within our own knowledge base, our own recruitment practices, or whether we hire a firm, I want those considerations to be front and center.
Yeah, I think absolutely we want to start off on the right foot here as a corporation, that when we do a recruitment, we are making sure that we do our recruitments in a way that encourages the full diversity of candidates. That's I think going to be very important for us as a corporation, and we will try and make sure that we do that, Brenda.
All right, I'll be counting on that.
Michael, I'm just noting that the resolution does not make it explicit that this is going to be brought back, that the results of the process that you and I, and as directors will notice, I've asked Warren Law to join me and Michael on this on this panel to undertake this work in light of his legal background and experience. It's my understanding that the results of our work would come back to the board for approval, since this is a joint board and CEO position.
Yes, actually, I wrote that differently, Maureen, but if the board would like to change that, I have actually written it that the board are enabling the committee to carry out this recruitment, including an offer of employment. I hadn't envisioned the appointee coming back to the board for approval, but if the board would like to include that step, the reason that it's fine for us to do that. I think the reason that I didn't was that I didn't think that was probably necessary, that as long as the board had selected the individuals and through the approval of this motion to participate, that would be enough to go forward with recruitment. But if the full board would like to approve the candidate, we could include that step.
Okay, thank you. Can I just get some feeling, given Michael's outline of how we should proceed? Is the board comfortable, or directors comfortable with proceeding that Michael and Warren and I would complete the process as outlined and make the selection on behalf of the board? Is anyone?
I would like to have it brought back to the board for final decision, but certainly the bulk of the recommendation here to appoint you folks, I certainly approve.
If I can, it's Paula. This is the board's corporate secretary. It is
Yes.
the corporate secretary who will work for the board. And as I hear, it's a permanent position. So this person is not an interim transition. And since it's the corporate secretary, I think it's critical that the board approve the corporate secretary. If it was a different position, I would say go ahead with Maureen and Warren, but I think we should be very careful how we're proceeding at this point.
Yeah.
So any further comment on that point? I see some heads nodding, the heads I can see. So all right, so as we deal with the motion, then we should amend, I think we should amend the motion to add at the end of the item B, carry out the recruitment of such position for approval of a candidate by the board.
Correct.
So
Yep.
Monique, you make that,
So
let me
moved.
ask, who's moving?
Brenda?
Brenda? Seconder?
Carrie, second.
Carrie, thank you. And with that amendment, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Just from a procedural point of view, I think, Maureen, you probably need two motions, one to
Yes, I
amend
realized
the,
that after I had
yeah,
after I had suggested that amendment, I realized it. Okay, so we need a motion to amend the motion to add the words at the end for approval by the Board of Directors.
Linda moves.
Linda, thank you.
I second.
Brenda, second. And then we have, let me ask the question again, motion for approval of the motion as amended.
So moved.
Brenda seconding and Linda, Brenda's moving and Carrie was seconding.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, and I think it's a very important position that we do move forward to recruit and to get in place to help us with moving forward, also with the board governance work that we'll want to be advancing following our discussions at the orientation in the fall. And I know we're all anxious to get a structure in place to help us move forward at below the board level. So it'll be helpful to have that individual in place to help us. So that takes us to the revised preliminary work plan. This is for information, but Michael, I'd like you to highlight for the board the amendments that have been made as a result of your discussion with staff and my discussion with you to this work plan that was initially presented at the June 30th meeting.
right.
And it's
So, yeah.
It's item attachment 5.
Yeah.
There isn't a report, but it's item 5, attachment 5 for item 17.
Yeah. So this is a revision of an updated version of what was came out of the last board meeting, and it includes the steps that we will take today, and those we will be working on towards the September 28th board meeting. So we'll revise this to include this amendment on the corporate secretary legal counsel role that will come back for approval as well. We may not be there by September 28th, so it might be a subsequent board meeting. You can see the key items that we will bring forward to the board in September. I think the one I would highlight is that coming back to that board meeting, I will bring a detailed work plan towards transition. So many of the major issues that Councillor Fletcher alluded to, and there are others that are going to be the important things that we will be engaging the Toronto Community Housing and the city, you'll see addressed in that work plan, and we'll be able to go through that work plan in some detail and be discussing those issues. So I'll be working hard in the meantime with Toronto Community Housing and the city staff to be able to bring that back to you in a way that's going to lay out what we think will be the path to transition sometime next year, presumably.
Would you be, sorry, it's Paula.
Yes,
You're going to be working with TCHC and the city. I'm presuming that the tenants advisory team that is at TCHC will be one of the groups you'll be working with as well, not just the staff.
Right. So one of the things, Paula, that I've been discussing with Toronto Community Housing already is a way in which we can appropriately, as a new corporation, engage with seniors tenants. Now, we're not currently their landlord, but we will be in the future. And I think we're working on this at the moment, that there will be an appropriate and effective way where we can start to, at Toronto Community Housing's invitation, with those tenant groups, like the advisory council that you talked about, that we can start to engage with tenants. So I will bring that back in terms of what that plan looks like, but I think
Okay,
it's something
that's
that
great.
we will want to do relatively early on.
Yes, and of course, there's also the Tenants First group, which has been the lead for the Seniors Corporation. TCHC has never been the lead to set up the Seniors Corporation, ever. They just happen to be the landlord of these tenants. But there are folks that need to be part of that discussion that have been on this path with great knowledge. So I would encourage you as well to work with the Tenants First team.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be I know, Tom, thank you for being here. I don't know when Paul Johnson arrives. When does he come? Because we now have a new permanent deputy city manager. When is he coming?
Good afternoon, Councillor Fletcher. He is starting right after the Labor Day weekend, Tuesday, September 7th. So he will be here for your next meeting.
He's also an expert in housing from Hamilton. So that's good for you, Michael. You'll have some good support there.
Just a quick question, Madam Chair. At what point will we as a corporation, or individually or collectively, actually meet some tenants? I mean, I know there's a certain timing issue here, appropriateness and all that, but you know, I'm only reading between the lines of stuff I read and pick up from other people. But Councillor Fletcher, you mentioned, you know, the drivers of the tenant advisory groups and the Tenants First. I mean, I think we need to hear those things. Maybe this could be dealt with in our orientation meeting in September to get the real gist of the heart and soul of what was behind some of this thinking and some of this leaning.
Well, as you know, we do have in our orientation in September, we have a segment on the current tenant engagement system, and we're going to have an overview of our future tenant population. I think that's an important first step, so that we have a shared understanding of both who we are going to be future landlords of, as well as the mechanisms that are currently in place. So I think what Michael and I have had some discussion of this, but what I would suggest, I think we still believe that it is premature for us individually or even collectively to start interacting until we have a shared context for that interaction. But we are looking at how we can do it early. But I would suggest that it should await the conclusion of our discussion at the orientation.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's good. And will there be discussion of the demographics as well at the orientation? Great.
Yes, that's part of the presentation.
Yeah, thank you then.
So let me use that to
Sorry, Maureen, will the Tenants First team be there?
Sorry?
Will the Tenants First, Brenda, the Tenants First team is the city team?
Right.
Yes.
Of staff?
Yes.
That have been birthing this corporation. So
Right.
I'm concerned. I don't hear, we're not talking about them much. And I don't want to throw them overboard just yet. I'd like them very involved in everything that we're doing as a board, because we're not on our own yet.
No, Councillor Fletcher, they're running the orientation program, so don't worry. They'll be very much supporting the process.
Fantastic, thank you.
So we've come to the end of our time. Just before we conclude and I ask for a motion to adjourn, I'd just like to thank you all for agreeing to participate in the pre-work leading to our orientation on September 15th. And you will be hearing from Emma next week to coordinate that effort. And I want to wish you all a restful what's left of this summer that's going by way too fast. and look forward to seeing you at our orientation in September, and then our September board meeting. And in the meantime, I just want to thank Michael again for taking this new position on with tremendous enthusiasm and commitment, and we're very happy to have you working with us to advance the new corporation. So thank you for that. And so finally, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Who would like to move?
Paul will move adjournment.
Paul and Jim, I see a seconder. Jim? Okay, all in
I
favor?
wanted to ask a question first before we adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. I apologize. I just saw your hand there now. Yes, Jim, your question?
Just wanted to make sure that next week we are going to be contacted about the committees.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Indeed. So Jim moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And thank you all for your time today, and we'll see you soon, and have a restful time in the meantime.
Hope
Thanks,
everybody
Lori.
stays safe and well until our next meeting.
Yeah. Take
Bye.
Looking forward to the next meeting.